when you look at tariffs, there are two gains from trade. You know, you have countries all over, 190 countries, and you know, there's some countries that produce products more efficiently than we do, and we produce some products more efficiently than they do. We would be foolish in the extreme if we didn't sell them those things we make more efficiently than they do. In exchange from those, they make it's the Ricardian gains from trade.
Right.
And it's really straightforward. It's without exchange rates. It's without any of this stuff. It's just comparative advantage, and it is a bombshell idea. It's hugely important.
It's the bedrock of our understanding of it.
Well, you know, in a one-country world, there are no gains from trade by international trade because there's only one country. And then it becomes the division of labor. It's Adam Smith, the needles. And it's the same concept, only Ricardo extended it to countries. And he used wine and cloth, if you remember in the Portuguese example with to there. And it's just beautiful. It's far less general than Ricardo put it, because when you get very big countries, their gains from trade are less than tiny ones. So, you know, there are a lot of things that go into where gains, and I'll come back to that for a second with you, but that's the Ricardian gains from trade. And it's a huge, huge concept and very important. The second category of the gains from trade comes from the Alexander gains from trade, which is not unlike the Ricardian, but it's applied differently. There are some countries that have high incomes and save a lot and have very low investment opportunities, and they're excess savings countries. There are some countries that have lots of investment opportunities, but their savings is less than their investment opportunities, so they're net investors. And if they did not do trade, the savings countries, savers would earn much less than they do by giving their money to the investment countries. The investment countries are much better off getting it. So it's the transfer of capital. Now, the transfer of capital is the trade surplus or the trade deficit. And let me go through this with you on accounting, and I just want to make sure you've got it. You've got a machine in Japan. Machine's doing really badly. It's losing money hand over fist. It's in this factory there, but oh God, it's just awful placement there. But that machine in Denver, Colorado would produce gangbusters. Profits be flying. So what do? You take a lorry up there to Hokkaido, you load that machine onto the lorry, you drive it down, come all the way down to Tokyo Harbor, you load it onto a ship, you send that ship over to the U.S., San Francisco, you offload the machine there, you put it on a truck in the U.S., you take it up to Colorado, you place it in the factory. What you've done is you've taken a crappy piece of machinery in Japan and made it a stellar, wonderfully, the world's all better off. All right? By loading that machine on a ship in Tokyo Harbor, that's called a Japanese export and a Japanese trade surplus. By offloading that machine in San Francisco, it's called a U.S. import and a U.S. trade deficit. You with me? That's the truth. Now, there's another account that we don't do usually in the national income and product accounts, but there is a capital account. Japan now has one less machine than they otherwise would have had, and the U.S. has one more machine than it otherwise would have had. So the U.S. has a capital surplus and a trade deficit, and Japan has a trade surplus and a capital deficit. You follow me? This is the Alexander gains from trade. So you see both of them there, the Ricardian comparative advantage, and then you see the Alexander one, which is the transferring of resources for productivity there, and it's directly associated with the trade balance. Trade balance surpluses are countries that export capital. Trade balance deficits are countries that import it. From 1640 until 1870, the U.S. ran trade deficits each and every year except for 7 years out of 230 years. We got all of our capital from Europe because we had great investment opportunity. We combined it with our labor and our natural resources. Bam, we produced it. It was all came from Holland and from Britain, and there were 7 years that we didn't have a trade surplus, a trade deficit. 7 years. You guess those years? 1776, 1777. For some reason, the Limeys weren't willing to give us the money, just for some reason. 1811, 1812. Oh, there you go, another one. Oh, in 1842 to 1844, when we had the canal bond crashes and Rothschild said, you'll never get another penny America. That lasted for 3 years, and then we started flowing the money. Those are the 7 years, literally. We built our country on trade deficits, capital surpluses, bringing it and creating it. Whenever we owed too much money to foreigners, do you know what we did? We opened up immigration, let those people, oh, I guess I need to come over here. Now we didn't know what the foreigners anymore. I thought you'd find that humorous.
Yeah.
Now, these are the gains from trade, and please forgive me for going through them, but it's very important you understand the gains from trade. Now you look at the idiots, the uneducated people that want to protect American, you can see the problem, and now you ask yourself, what does protectionist tendencies do? Well, we have some good examples. In 1929, as I mentioned, the Smoot-Hawley tariff, we had that. Bob Mundell, my close colleague, and person I loved it, just adored, at the Nobel Prize in '99. In his Nobel laureate speech, he said it was a Smoot-Hawley tariff that caused the Great Depression. It was the Great Depression that caused World War II, that caused the slaughter of millions of human beings. It doesn't get much worse than that. You've got the Nixon one, which I was in the White House with, the 10% import surcharge. We also had the Job Development Credit, which was an investment tax credit that excluded foreign-made capital from being eligible for the credit there, which was very protectionist, and you saw what happened in 1972, 73, 74, 75, worst period round ever. There's no question that the gains from trade are of monumental empirical importance as well as conceptual. Now I can flip the table over. We had the Kennedy round tariff negotiation where we dropped tariffs. Lots of other things were going on at all this time, but we had the go-go 60s, rocket ship. We cut the tariffs there, tax cuts too, and all this other stuff, but sure as hell didn't stop it. We had the Reagan NAFTA, which passed by Clinton, which all the Republicans voted for then, and you can see it was it was a beautiful era of Reagan and Clinton and prosperity. So no matter how you slice it or dice it, trade is conceptually very easy to understand and empirically is dynamite. We all together?
Yep.
Now let's go to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is very well aware of all of the things I have just told you. I know personally he is, because I've talked about them all. There are three things different today than sort of the historical theory that I gave you. And those three things are fairly interesting, and they're worthy of heavy discussion. Number one is that in the olden days, the Smoot-Hawley tariff, it passed the House and the Senate in the fourth quarter of 1929. In that quarter alone, the stock market dropped by 30%. It then went to 1930. It was signed into law in June. It took 4 years to get the Smoot-Hawley tariff. It started off as just an agricultural bill, and then this huge laborious process, and then got locked into law, and then impossible to unlock. Just it's a very cumbersome, clumsy tool there. Today, that's not the case. You do it by executive order. You can change it tomorrow morning. Boop, boop, and your glasses there. You can shoot it and take them back. It's a very different there. Today, the system is highly flexible. Back then, it was totally inflexible.
Right.
That makes a lot of difference. Number two, even though there are no winners in a trade war, the losers don't all lose the same amount. As I mentioned to you, big countries don't lose. Imagine two countries, the U.S. and Puerto Rico. The U.S. is 99% of the world, and Puerto Rico is 1% of the world, okay? We have free trade. U.S. exports are Puerto Rican imports. Puerto Rican exports are U.S. imports. The U.S. trade deficit is the Puerto Rican trade surplus, and everything's in perfect harmony. But the gains from trade are there. Now, the head of the U.S. says, I don't like this trade deal. Here's stuff. For American companies at the time, 99% of their clients are Americans. Only 1% are Puerto Ricans. But for Puerto Rican companies, 99% of their clients are American, 1% are Puerto Rican. Oh my God. And they're so specialized, they're just disaster. The damage done to little countries is far larger than, so even though the gains from trade are universal and all of that, the losses are not. And it's very true there. Now, the third difference, which I want to talk about here, is what I'll use as reciprocity. I don't know what you think of the U.S., but obviously you came with a light in your eye for John F. Kennedy, the Peace Corps and strength through military spending and tax cuts and growth and great rhetoric and, personal morals, who cared.
Yeah. And by the way, he created this AID bill, which ultimately became a disaster, but that's a separate thing.
And he allowed unions to be formed in public. As an ideal image, he was beautiful, like Reagan, just like Reagan. And in the post-World War II era, I'm very, very proud of my country. We were relatively unscathed. We weren't unscathed. 50% of GDP went to weapons that blew up, but we gave all the Lend-Lease programs. We gave all the foreign aid programs to other countries. We allowed all these other countries to protect their domestic industries, to build them up. We allowed them to put on tariffs without reciprocating with it. All of that stuff. And we did that. We did it, I think, selflessly.
Yeah.
And I think as a country, I'm very proud of it, even though we had a black problem, even though we had we try to solve those problems in this country, and I did that. But the plaque buildup to where now the reciprocity is just a horrible situation where the U.S., of all the major countries, is by far the freest trade country.
Absolutely.
By far. Now, maybe you can say the Isle of Man or Jersey, Guernsey, and Sark, or maybe Monaco or Hong Kong. You can nitpick. But the truth of the matter is the U.S. is a free, and all these other people are protectionist bastards. And they really are.
And it's not just tariffs.
It's everything.
The non-tariff barriers are even worse than the tariffs themselves.
Which one's uglier? But, Rosie O'Donnell, Whoopi Goldberg, I don't know. But they're both really ugly. And, when you look at this world, their tariffs on our products hurt them and us.
Yes.
And they don't understand this.
Yes.
They don't. And, Trump called me and was citing all of this stuff to me. This is in 2019. We had a phone call. And he was going through exactly what I'm going through with you now. He said, look at these people are protectionists, and the only damn thing they care about is access to our markets. Even though you and I know their tariffs hurt them and us. How do I get them to see this?
But the habit of the post-war years had become embedded in our consciousness. And we had no sense of the degree at which we are disadvantaged.
Well, this is where Trump lectured me on this point. And I've known this point forever, but I never thought of it.
Yeah.
But that the reciprocity is the U.S. is free trade, and these guys are, how do we get them to reduce tariffs? Kennedy, it took him all this negotiation stuff, NAFTA. It's just hell. It was, I don't remember the auto agreement with Canada, the U.S. and Canadian auto agreement. I worked with Robert Bourassa very closely. He used to come to my home, and I loved him. I could not stand René Lévesque. But I love Robert Bourassa. He was the first and of the opposition party. He was the one who got the U.S. auto agreement, U.S.-Canadian auto agreement done. I loved him. Died a very early death, unfortunately. So Trump says to me, Arthur, the only way I can see bringing them to the table seriously is by threatening to exclude them from our market. So I'm going to threaten them with 50%, 100%, 200% tariffs until they agree to a deal. I'm sitting in my living room right there with my little cell phone. What should I have said to him?
What did you say?
What did I say to you right now? I told you this story. Is it a different story now that you'd asked me about than when I started? Yes. I'm sitting there. There's no person I trust more on making these types of decisions, not dating my sister, but trust more than Donald Trump. I can't think of any person I know who I'd prefer to see president. Any person, especially me.
How did you get to know him?
GE. Privilege. Again, sorry about all this stuff, but GE adopted me when my first day on the University of Chicago campus. They'd known me.
Really?
Yes. And they adopted 11 or 12 people in their lives.
That's actually a story that Reagan tells. Because
yes, Reagan didn't have it when he was 26.
No, absolutely not.
But GE did it. It was Alva Way, who was head of all of GE and South American stuff, Alva Way, and He got me there. Put me in the GE program at Chicago, and I got all this extra income and stuff like that. But my partner through life, literally, they funded me. They did it with Peter Ubroth as well, in the hotels. They did it with Jerry Parsky and Aurora Capital. They did it with Leon, not Fetterman, Leon Cooperman. Leon Cooperman. They did it with me as well, and with Donald Trump. Donald Trump, they did it. And they did it also with Disney, with Roy and Goldberg. And I had met him a number of times, never personally well, but at all these, GE goes out and squeezes all their suppliers to give to their charities. So they overpay you, and then they demand some of it back as contributions. So I had to go to all these cancer things. GE. I love GE, by the way. And so I didn't. I'd meet Donald Trump there. When he opened Jean-Georges in New York, he poured me a champagne. There I had the... So I've known him peripherally for a long time. So when he was running for president in 2016, they said, you've got to get to know him. I've heard a mixture of stories. And when I say a mixture, it was a mixture. It wasn't just bad. Yeah. It was bad and good. I heard all about his personal life, which was not attractive. I don't know if any of it was true or not. So what would you do if you were I? I called Jack Welch. Oh, Jack, tell me about Donald Trump. He said, Arthur, I'll tell you, honestly, I have no idea whether he's being a good president or not. I don't know that at all. But I can just tell you as a business partner,